What up, guys? The Bench Buddies are back with another Bracketology. It is updated and it will be posted the day that we do it on. Today's the 25th, Friday, so it's going to be out there before the Friday night and Saturday games. But great week of basketball so far here, and not really too much has changed around the bubble. At least these three categories in the top overall seed, last team in, first team out, pretty much all staying the same. But, Michigan, North Carolina, who knows what's going to happen there, especially with those teams. And then Indiana, Virginia, Florida, the teams that you should expect to be in every year, kind of all around this bubble. But I think, Ty, the most impressive team, I think, right now in the bubble, who do you think is right now?
Man, it's hard to find a really impressive team on this bubble right now, to be honest. I mean, I guess Rutgers, even though they just lost to Michigan, who was undermanned. I mean, you could say Michigan, but they have 11 losses, and then TCU and North Carolina have fallen onto the bubble rather than rose to last four byes. So I'll go with Oregon, I guess, who just beat UCLA. And it just seems like every time Oregon plays a ranked team, they play like they're a ranked team, and then they just got to figure out how to stop playing down to their competition when they're not playing ranked teams, because they're a good team.
And I think an intriguing team here is that SMU team. I'm going to mention them again. If they can beat Houston tomorrow, I think they're probably pivoting up to at least the last four byes, skipping over the last four in. Really, San Diego State is kind of in the same category as well, being in the Mountain West, because if you can beat Colorado State or Wyoming, that's a really good win right now and can really throw you into past the last four in conversation as well. But I will get it started here, moving down to the west side of the bracket. So the number one overall seed in Gonzaga, and they will have no problems getting to the Sweet 16. They will play Miami, I think, and beat them single-handedly pretty well. And UConn will have a very close game against Ionia. I'm not picking Ionia this week for like the first time in three weeks, it feels like. But Toledo will upset Ohio State. Once again, Ohio State an early exit. And Toledo's magic will run out against UConn. So it'll be UConn versus Gonzaga in the Sweet 16. And give me Gonzaga. I think it's just hard to pick against Gonzaga right now. And they're moving on to the Elite Eight. So at the bottom, we'll start in San Diego. Give me Davidson over USC. After last night's performance, USC in double OT on the road against a 3-22 Oregon State team, squeaking out a win there. Big red flags right there. So I got to go with Davidson, a team that's capable of pulling off some upsets, as we saw early in the year. And I don't see why they can't do it again here. But that Davidson luck will run out because Texas Tech will win in the first round and beat them in the second round. So they'll be moving on to the Sweet 16. And who will they be playing? I think this region, or this bottom four, obviously it'll be Duke probably moving on. But that 7-10 game could go either way, I think. We've seen Michigan State be as high as a 3. Creighton really starting to play their best basketball right now. But you said they were without their best player for the rest of the year. And I think I probably was going to take Creighton before you told me that. So I got to go with Michigan State here because, they are still a healthy team. And when they play up to their potential, I mean, they are a top 25 team in the country, no doubt. But I think Duke will move on to the Sweet 16 to play Texas Tech. And I'm going with Texas Tech again for the second straight week, not only to make it to the Elite Eight, but to dethrone Gonzaga as well and to make it to the Final Four. I just think it's a special season for the Red Raiders right now, and they will get to the Final Four.
All right, so I'm going to go with Gonzaga to start it off over Colorado State. Colorado State's been very underrated, starting to play really well. Did I have Iona? I did have Iona. So give me Iona over UConn. You got to have a 12 over 5. That's just the one I see. You got to go with Rick Pitino, backing him. I'm going with Ohio State, though, to get by Toledo and Iona into the Sweet 16. I'm going with Davidson as well. USC just been playing really bad as of late. All they have is a home win over UCLA. If you take that away, I don't really know what they have in 2022, to be honest. So going with Davidson. Texas Tech, I agree, will breeze past Texas State and Davidson into the Sweet 16. I'm going with Michigan State over an injured Creighton to move on and play Duke. But I'm going with Michigan State. They're going to end Coach K's career. I think I still think they're going to turn it around at some point and figure themselves out. There's too much talent there. And Duke, I just haven't been super high on all year. So I'm going with the Spartans there. So you have Gonzaga and Ohio State. Ohio State could give them some trouble, but Gonzaga just too much size for a team without a traditional center. So give me Gonzaga. And I'm going to go with Michigan State over Texas Tech as well. I just think if they get past Duke, they match up really well with Texas Tech because Michigan State's problem is they don't have a go-to guy. Texas Tech doesn't necessarily have that either. So I'm going to Michigan State, but I think they'll get Gonzaga. I think will wipe the floor with Michigan State and go to the Final Four.
And an interesting note is Michigan State, it seems like they always perform better when they are a lower seed and make a run. At least when they, make the Final Four runs, it seems like they're never the 1 or 2 seed, besides that Duke year. But, Michigan State is definitely a team to look out for. As, we said a few weeks ago, they were just a 3 seed and moving down. We will move to the east side as well. So who will Gonzaga be playing for, or who will Texas Tech be playing for me? I think it's going to be a big question mark here in this region. I do think there will be some upsets here. So I'll start at the top. I'm going to go Auburn to the Sweet 16. They'll be playing Notre Dame. Xavier's a team that's still reeling. And I think that Providence loss is the cherry on the top for, a very overhyped team. And Houston will get upset to Indiana. I think Indiana will beat San Francisco and beat Houston. And UCLA will win that, but Indiana will upset UCLA as well. I just think that one of the play-in game teams is gonna, make it to the Sweet 16. It seems like it's happened, I think, for 5-6 straight years, I believe. So I think that's gonna be my team this year. Indiana will lose to Auburn, so Auburn will be making it to the Elite Eight. And then down here, as much as I hate picking LSU because they're a very fraud team, I got to take them here. I'm not really confident in either of those teams this year. So that's a game pretty much just winning to lose, essentially. But Villanova will wipe the floor with LSU, obviously assuming if they get past Wagner, which they should. So it'll be Villanova versus Purdue in the Sweet 16. And I think Wake Forest will get past Iowa State. Last video I was kind of hyping up Cyclones a little bit. Different story now, and who they're going to play. So I got to go with Purdue here. Purdue versus Villanova. Tough game for me to pick, honesty. 2 great coaches, great rosters, but I got to go with Purdue just because they have the size. Zach Edey and Travion Williams. It's really tough to match up with those guys, and everyone knows Villanova for Colin Gillespie, and when you have Jaden Ivey to guard him and give him buckets, I think it's a bad matchup for Villanova. And speaking that, I have Auburn versus Purdue, and I got to go with Purdue here. Once again, I think the size won't matter in this game because it's a pretty evenly matched up game. But I think if both of these teams play to their potential, Purdue has the slight edge because we've seen Auburn, I think, more accustomed to playing down to other teams' levels in the SEC as they've been squeaking out some 1-point, 2-point wins here on the road in their conference, where Purdue really hasn't done that. They've either lost or pretty much dominated in all games. So that's why I got to go with Purdue here in the Final Four.
All right, I've got some upsets going on in this region here. I have Auburn and Notre Dame moving on, and then I'm gonna go with Houston. I think Indiana gets through, and then I think they'll give Houston some trouble. But Houston can match up really well with Indiana's size, so I think they'll move on there in a tough matchup. I'm going with UCLA as well. I guess back at the top. So we got Auburn and Notre Dame. I'm picking my huge upset here. I'm going with Notre Dame to upset the Auburn Tigers. I just have not been impressed with Auburn ever since they were number 1. It seems like they've struggled a lot. And I think Notre Dame just pulls the shocker, similar to Loyola last year. Because Auburn really reminds me of last year's Illinois team, who obviously lost in the second round as well. I'm going with UCLA over Houston. I would have taken a healthy Houston, but unfortunately they're not healthy, so going to UCLA. I'm also going LSU over a weak play-in matchup. You can't trust Memphis. You just can't. And I'm going with Villanova easily over Wagner and LSU to move on. Give me Purdue beating, we'll say Iowa State. Iowa State's been starting to play well again, but I think Purdue gets past them. So you have UCLA and Notre Dame. Interesting Sweet 16 matchup. But UCLA has way too much talent. I think Notre Dame's luck of the Irish runs out. Give me UCLA. And I'm also going with Purdue over Villanova. Like you said, bad matchup for Villanova. We already saw it once this year. So I have Purdue facing off with UCLA in the Elite Eight. And I just think Purdue's size is too much for UCLA, and Purdue goes to the Final Four.
Back up here at the South region, we have Arizona as the number one seed, most deserving team, I think. Coming into the year, no one really thought that they would even be higher than an 8 seed, probably at best. I mean, that's just over exaggeration, I think. Honestly, I think they're exceeding all expectations, and a team that people probably won't be too skeptical picking on because they are on the West Coast and not a lot of people stay up to watch those teams. But getting into the bracket here, they will move to the Sweet 16. I don't really see too much happening for the Wildcats to get upset. But if they do play Wyoming, they could give them a tough task in the first half. But I think Arizona's skill will match up and destroy them in the second half. I think I got to pick against my preseason pick again. I'm going with South Dakota State over Texas. I think what you said against UConn and Ionia, 12-5, you got to pick one. And this is my one, this video. But Illinois will beat Chattanooga. They'll get past South Dakota State. And I think I'm going to do it. They're going to get past Arizona as well. I think Kofi Coburn's going to be the key. And if he, plays dominant game, I think there's no stopping him. So they'll be moving on to the Elite Eight. And then down here, I have Iowa beating North Carolina, Tennessee winning, but I also have Iowa upsetting Tennessee. And Iowa's a team to look out for. They're a very streaky team, and they're getting hot at the right moment. I know we saw them just lose to Michigan last week, but, I think that was their first loss in 6-7 games, something like that. They won 6 out of the last 7, something like that. But a team that is poised for a Sweet 16 run. And then down here, this is where it gets fun. I'm going Baylor to win, Boise State to win over Rutgers, a very good Rutgers team. But I'm going with Boise State over Baylor. I think the absence of their center, I'm not going to try to pronounce his name in this video because I never get it right. I don't know. I just have a feeling that some Mountain West team is going to make a run, and I'm going with Boise State here. And I think you got a 6 versus 7 matchup in the Sweet 16 to play the 4 seed. And I'm going with the Big Ten team, Iowa, to beat Boise State. So it'll be a Big Ten rematch, Illinois, Iowa in the Elite Eight. And it seems like there's one in every region that there's a conference matchup in the Elite Eight to see who gets to the Final Four. And I'm going to go with Illinois here to move on to the Final Four.
All right. Definitely a strong region here. I would say one of the stronger ones. I'm going with Arizona over Seton Hall in the second round. Seton Hall could give them a little bit of trouble, but we've just seen them not play at a high level for the past month. So I don't think it'll be too much for Arizona. I think Texas and Illinois move on. If those two match up, I feel like Illinois is the better team, but I just have a gut feeling that Texas wins that game. I don't know why. I just feel like Texas beats Illinois. I think they can lock down Kofi Coburn, and I think Texas moves on to play Arizona in the Sweet 16. I'm going with the upset, going with North Carolina over Iowa. Iowa's been playing really well, but come tournament time, they always underperform for whatever reason. Saw it last year. We've seen it in years prior, so I'm going with North Carolina. And I think North Carolina gets past Tennessee there in the second round, and the Tar Heels make a run to the Sweet 16 as an 11. I'm going with Rutgers over Boise State, but I think Baylor gets past Rutgers, even though Baylor isn't quite healthy. I think they get to the Sweet 16. So it's Arizona and Texas here in the Sweet 16. I'm going with Arizona. I think it runs out for Texas. Arizona is just way too talented. And then you have Baylor and North Carolina. Again, talent, a big factor. Baylor should get past them fairly easily. So you have Arizona and Baylor. And if Baylor was fully healthy, I would pick Baylor, but they're not. So I'm going with Arizona to go to the Sweet 16 or Final Four.
And the last region here is the Midwest, with Kansas being the 1 seed. I have Kansas moving on. And once again, I'm going with an upset. The 1 seed's getting upset. All my 1 seeds are going out, it seems like, early. I'm going with Murray State to get past St. Mary's and to get past Kansas to move the Sweet 16. I'm super high on this Murray State team. They just beat Belmont at home by 33. They were doubling them at half. Belmont's the second best team in the conference, and Belmont, is supposedly supposed to be a tournament team, bubble team. And after that 33-point performance, they got bounced right out of that bubble conversation. And Murray State, the Racers, they're one of their losses is to Auburn, and another one was just a lower D1 team, but that was at the beginning of the year. And since that moment, I think they're on at least a 20-game win streak. So definitely a mid-major team to look out for are those Murray State Racers. But once again, if you haven't checked out our bid stealers video, I would definitely go check out that video because there's another team in that conference that could steal a bid for Murray State if they don't win the conference tournament. But getting back to the bracket here, I have Alabama and Providence both moving on, but I have Providence moving on. I got to stick with my Friars, of course. But when it comes to Murray State and Providence, I got to go with Murray State here. I think there's going to be a low team that makes a run to the Elite Eight, and it will be those Murray State Racers. And then at the bottom of this bracket, I have Arkansas beating TCU, Wisconsin beating Montana State, Michigan beating Marquette. Got to have some bias here, and Kentucky winning. So no real big upsets there in the first round. But in the second round here, round of 32, this is where it gets interesting. I have Arkansas beating Wisconsin. I think Arkansas is probably one of the best 5 or lower seeds in the field right now. And I have Michigan beating Kentucky because, I think Dickinson can match up well with their bigs. And, if Houston can shoot well and extend them outside, I think that's very helpful for Michigan and to get others open shooting. But this is assuming they don't go like 3 for 27 again. Because if that happens, then they'll get blown out of the water. So I'm assuming they're going to shoot well in these first 2 games here. So I have Arkansas and Michigan in the Sweet 16, but I got to go against my bias, and I'm going with Arkansas here. I think Arkansas is just a team that's really hot right now in the SEC that's once again still being overlooked because of, Auburn, of course. And I think they will also get to the Final Four as well, beating those Murray State Racers. So you have a 6 versus a 9 in the Elite Eight, and I'm going with the 6 here in Arkansas to get to the Final Four.
Interesting. I do think this is the weakest region. You have the worst 3 seed, you have the worst 4 seed, sorry, and you also have the worst 5 seed. So this region could go a lot of different ways if you have Kansas or Kentucky get upset. I don't know if I see that happening though. I'm going with Kansas over Murray State. I had the same matchup on Tuesday, but now I'm giving it to Murray State, who has looked really good, and I think they're underseeded as a 9. Should be at least a 7. But I'm going with Kansas to the Sweet 16. I'm going with Alabama, and I'm unfortunately going with New Mexico State in my upset. Again, it just works out again where I have Providence going down. But I do have Alabama getting past New Mexico State to face Kansas there in the Sweet 16. I'm going with Arkansas, who's been playing really well over TCU, and then Wisconsin. But I agree. I think I'm taking Arkansas over Wisconsin. Wisconsin, I'm just not super high on them as a 3 seed. The metrics hate Wisconsin, like the net rankings, stuff like that. They hate Wisconsin, and I'm not super high on them either. So I'm going with Arkansas. I'm going with Michigan. Obviously, you got to at least pick them to win that game over Marquette. But I'm putting my bias aside this week just to prove to you guys that it just worked out last week. I'm going with Kentucky over Michigan. This would be a terrible draw, in my opinion, for Michigan. Kentucky's the last team I would want to play in the second round, so I'm going with them. Kansas, Alabama. If Alabama shoots like they have when they beat Gonzaga, then they'll win, but they're not going to, unfortunately. I'm going with Kansas there. And then you got Kentucky and Arkansas, an SEC matchup, and I'm going with Kentucky to get past Arkansas. So you have Kansas and Kentucky in the Elite Eight. And what does Kansas always do in the Elite Eight? They always choke. So give me Kentucky to the Final Four.
And in my Final Four, on the left, I have Texas Tech versus Purdue. And on the right, I have Illinois versus Arkansas. But we'll start on the left here. So I have a 3 seed versus a 2 seed. And I'm going to go a different route this week. I'm going to go with Purdue to beat Texas Tech. I think that game, if it happens, it'll be a different result every time for me. I just think that those 2 teams are going to play a really good game. I don't care about matchups. I don't care about stats. I just see what's on the court and how they play. And they both play really competitive. And I think it'll be a back and forth game. But I think Purdue has a better guard. So I got to go with Jaden Ivey and his team to make it to the championship. And who will they be playing? they'll be playing either a 4 seed or a 6 seed, and I'm going with the 6 seed here in Arkansas. I'm just, really high on this Arkansas team right now. They'll probably get upset tomorrow because I'm talking really good about them right now. I don't know. I just don't see two Big Ten teams making it to the championship. I mean, I'm just kind of surprised. I have two, honestly, going to the Final Four, but Arkansas has a magical run, and they're just going to keep on that run. And they are also going to win the national championship. I think that it might be out there, but sometimes it happens. We saw UConn make that run when they got lucky with Kemba as a 9 or 8 seed. They made the run and won it all. So it's definitely been done before. And being a 6 seed, that's happened as well. But I gotta go with Arkansas here. The must bus is coming home with a trophy.
I will say this does feel like a year like 2014 where you saw UConn win the championship. It does feel like a year where a high seed, or I guess a low seed, could win the national championship, similar to that. I'm too scared to pick it and be wrong, so I'm going with some more chalk here. I have Gonzaga and Purdue in the Final Four, along with Arizona and Kentucky. I think Gonzaga beats Purdue. If there's a team that can match their size, it's Gonzaga with Timmy and Holmgren. So I think Gonzaga gets by them into the championship. I think Holmgren can expose Purdue centers. He's way too athletic for them. So Gonzaga gets by. And then you have Arizona and Kentucky. I'm going with Kentucky. Again, Arizona beats a lot of teams with their size, but Kentucky has Oscar Tshiebwe. So I think they get by Arizona. And you have Gonzaga and Kentucky. And right now I'm going with Gonzaga. Kentucky is not healthy right now, still missing Ty Washington and Severe Wheeler. So if they can get healthy, I'll probably pick them. But right now I'm going with Gonzaga. The West Coast Conference is the best it's maybe ever been, and they're still dominating it like they always do. So right now I got Gonzaga.
And that'll be it for the video today. If you liked it, hit that like button. Comment below whose bracket you'd rather go with, or if you have any different picks as well. And make sure to subscribe, get us to 100 subscribers so we can get out that autographed item. But until the next time, the Bench Buddies are out.
She never called back.